I'm Christina. I like Progress Texas because it gives me a lot of very timely information in an easy to digest format. I would love if Greg Abbott has come to his senses and listened to Texans and gives up on his vouchers. This is just ridiculous.
It's Wednesday, April 16th, 2025, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch. Rapid response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm Chris Mosier. Speaking of vouchers, a big day at the Capitol today is putting it very mildly. For 30 years now, over 15 legislative sessions, Texas Republicans and their billionaire backers have been pushing against overwhelming public opinion and the better judgment of their own GOP lawmakers representing vast swaths of rural Texas, country counties, and small towns where the local schools and the Friday night lights are everything to those communities, to prioritize instead a kickback to wealthy Texas families who have chosen to disconnect from those traditions in favor of private schools and want to take their tax dollars supporting public education, a basic good that underpins the greatness of America, with them. Private school voucher programs have become the bane of budgets in other states that have tried the same experiment, but Governor Greg Abbott has been handsomely compensated in the form of record-setting campaign contributions from a very rich man who lives in Pennsylvania, of all places. So here we are. Lucio Vasquez and Blaise Gainey at the Texas Newsroom say the debate starts today in the State House on Senate Bill 2, already passed by the Senate back in February, to create what they're calling Education Savings Accounts, or ESAs, which will grant Texas parents a voucher they can use to redirect over $10,000 of public funds per student towards private school tuition and other approved educational expenses. While state Democrats and small-town Republicans in the House have formed a coalition that for the last 30 years has held the voucher scam at bay, the governor and his party are confident they can get it done this year. But Renzo Downey at the Texas Tribune writes that the Dems ain't dead yet on this issue. You might recall on a podcast recently, we asked Austin State Representative Gina Hinojosa if there was any solution, any compromise on the voucher dilemma that she'd accept from state Republicans, and her answer was, put it to the people. More than 50 House Democrats have signed on to a plan to kill all constitutional amendments for the rest of the session unless the GOP majority allows a public referendum, a public vote on school vouchers, and they appear to have the numbers to do it. Constitutional amendments require a minimum of 100 votes to pass the House before going to Texas voters, meaning that of the 62 Democrats in the chamber, Republicans have to convince at least 12 to go along with their plans. 50 are said to have signed on to this Democratic strategy, leaving that last 12 in the balance. A single one sticking with their party stops constitutional amendments making their way to Texas ballots. Governor Abbott has crowed from the rooftops that most Texas voters want vouchers, so what are they afraid of? Could be the actual facts, which are that no voucher measure has survived a public vote in any other state ever, and that recent actual polling shows 65% against vouchers, including 95% of Democrats, 72% of independents, and 42%, close to half, of Republicans. Only one party and only one economic group within that party, the wealthiest of Texas families, are fired up about vouchers, and it would not succeed in a referendum, and they know it. Republicans will be pushing hard today at the Capitol. By the way, and I speak from experience here personally, out-of-state tuition for college kids is really expensive, but it may turn out to be worth it for families who want their kids to actually understand the real world. Future Texas college graduates, on the other hand, will have been taught a whitewashed version of history that state Republicans and conservatives will have put into place to keep them compliant with their worldview. CBS Austin says the Texas Senate gave approval to SB 37 yesterday. We've told you about this, a bill that will allow Republican politicians to control how the state's public universities teach their students about history, race, and inequality. After author and Republican Senator Brandon Creighton gave Senate Democrats 10 minutes to review the 13-page document before the vote was held yesterday, it passed on straight party lines 20-11. David Albert, vice president for the Texas Conference of the American Association of University Professors and a government instructor at Austin Community College, says, quote, if this is enforced, students will learn less about the world. They will learn a more rose-colored glasses view of the way society operates, unquote. Houston Senator Molly Cook said, quote, I've got constituents reaching out to me saying this is the death of higher ed, unquote, and I'd agree with that wholeheartedly. Once this bill becomes law, Texas colleges can no longer be relied upon to actually teach historical truth. And parents who want their kids to understand the actual truth should be sending those kids to school elsewhere. We're at a point where things are revving up for the 2026 midterm election cycle, and in Texas, almost all of the action regarding candidates and campaigns remains as of this morning on the Republican side. We've talked about the awkward situation that the Democrats find themselves in, desperately needing the notoriously unreliable Congressman Henry Cuellar to stay in his seat representing Laredo, as GOP candidates are lining up to unseat him. Isaac Yu at the San Antonio Express News says former Congresswoman Mayra Flores has launched a comeback effort against Cuellar after losing to Democrat Vicente Gonzalez in 2022 to keep the U.S. House seat she temporarily won after Democrat Filemon Vela Jr. quit before the end of his term earlier in 2022. So Flores will be running here as an outsider to this community. She joins an increasingly crowded field. Law clerk Juan Esparza, Navy veteran Jay Furman, and Hays County GOP Chair Michelle Lopez have all declared races as well against Cuellar. Meanwhile, other Republicans are lining up to try and replace Ken Paxton at Attorney General, who cannot run for re-election due to his primary challenge against Senator John Cornyn. Predicting that these GOP hopefuls would immediately pledge to out Paxton was not a stretch, it turns out. John Moritz of the Austin American-Statesman says the first guy up is John Bash, who clerked for Supreme Court Justices Antonin Scalia and Brett Kavanaugh, was U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Texas during Trump's first term, and has lately been working for Elon Musk. Bash announced for AG the day after Paxton announced for Senate. Next up was Senator Mays Middleton, who's big on cramming as much Christianity as possible into our public school classrooms. Other possibles include freshman GOP Rep. Mitch Little of Louisville, who was part of Paxton's impeachment defense team, and GOP Senator Brian Hughes, who chairs the Senate State Affairs Committee and in his tenure has declared war on a wide array of basic freedoms, ranging from reproductive rights to drag shows. And finally, a Democrat gets mentioned. Joe Jaworski, former Galveston mayor, says he's thinking about it and will decide by July. Jaworski ran for AG in 2022, but the nomination that year went to Rochelle Garza. Finally today from Sarah Grunow at Houston Public Media, a Houston law firm targeted for refusing to go along with Donald Trump's 2020 election fraud fantasy and then targeted by Trump once back in power is fighting back. Earlier this month, Trump issued an executive order titled Addressing Risks from Sussman Godfrey, which took aim at Houston-based law firm Sussman Godfrey LLP with accusations of unlawful discrimination and of funding groups that undermine U.S. military effectiveness and degrade election quality. Punching back, Sussman Godfrey has filed a lawsuit challenging the executive order as unconstitutional and seeking a court injunction to prevent its enforcement, reading in part that Trump's order, quote, makes no secret of its unconstitutional, retaliatory, and discriminatory intent to punish Sussman Godfrey for its work defending the integrity of the 2020 presidential election. Today, it is our firm under attack, but tomorrow it could be any of us. As officers of the court, we are duty-bound to take on this fight against the illegal executive order, unquote, and that's one to follow for obvious reasons. San Antonio and Austin friends, Progress Texas is proud to welcome San Antonio Mayor Ron Nirenberg as our guest for a live podcast taping at our Party for Progress on Tuesday, May the 6th, and you're invited. We look forward to a long overdue visit to Alamo City. Again, mark that date, Tuesday, May 6th, live pod taping with Mayor Ron Nirenberg and good fun with you in San Antonio. See the show notes and get your tickets right now. Thanks to Austin Kaplan and the Kaplan Law Firm, Shannon Hernseer, Julianne Reeves, Tracy Miller, Will Judy, Nicolette Ardiente, and more for their generous support of our San Antonio Party for Progress on May the 6th. Our mission at Progress Texas is to counter the conservative disinformation machine, but they far outmatch us in funding. Oil and tech billionaires and religious right-wing activist groups spend a lot of money keeping their audiences in the dark. If you've come to appreciate the light we shine on important political news in Texas on a daily, ongoing basis, please know that our regular, everyday listeners form a key component of our funding. And if that's you, we could use your support as a monthly contributor, and no amount is too small. Go to progresstexas.org/donate. Thanks to Sandra Maddox, Wayne Bannister, and Francesca Beaumont, all of whom are on the team. We appreciate all of y'all very much. That's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for this Wednesday, April 16th, 2025. Links to all these original stories can be found in our show notes. Progress Texas is a nonprofit rapid response media organization promoting progressive messages and actions. While campaigns come and go, we're the permanent home for progressive media and action in the Lone Star State. I'm Chris Mosier. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day. We'll see you again tomorrow morning.